3 bone-chilling true night drive horrors that will haunt you forever. The night draped over the stretch of highway like a thick velvet curtain, concealing horrors that would curdle the bravest soul's blood. One grip on the steering wheel, another holding their breath, drivers had no idea these roads had teeth and they were hungry. Just beyond the stretch of asphalt, shadows flickered, and the air pulsed with a whisper of dread that would claw its way into the heart of anyone brave or foolish enough to drive through. It began with the ghostly sounds of laughter mingling with the hum of the engine, haunting melodies drifting through the opened window. The first driver, a weary traveler named Bill, thought it was just his imagination playing tricks during a long haul. But as he pressed on, the laughter grew louder, creeping inside his veins, chilling him to the bone. Glancing in the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of someone sitting in the back seat. The thrill of confusion twisted his stomach into knots. Who was it? Why couldn't he remember picking anyone up? Panic surged through him, and though he swore his eyes were deceiving him, the weight of the presence felt very real. Then, there was Emily, who drove home late from her job at the diner. The deep woods flanking the road seemed to whisper secrets. Out of nowhere, her headlights danced upon a figure standing still on the roadside. Her heart dropped. This was no ordinary hitchhiker. They stood motionless, shrouded in darkness, followed only by the moonlight that dared not reach them fully. Instinct screamed at her to speed away, yet a dreadful curiosity tugged at her, urging her to stop. But just as she reached for her phone to snap a photo, they vanished, leaving behind only the hot breath of fear clinging to her skin. And there was Derek, who swore he would never take that shortcut again after the night his GPS led him straight to a hidden graveyard, lost between the tombstones. An eerie entrapment. As fog rolled in thick, he thought he saw the headstones shift, the ghosts of those long buried rising to stare at him with hollow eyes. Their fingertips grazed his car as if pleading for help. Derek slammed on the brakes, heart racing, sweat beading on his brow. With each moment, the suffocating stillness around him sounded like 1,000 whispers begging, "Help us, hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up." Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As you dive deeper into the night and its many spine-chilling truths, remember, there are shadows that move where no one is watching. And when the road calls out your name, you might just find something waiting for you, something that will haunt you forever. Are you ready to face what lurks beyond the headlights? The engine's roar was the only sound breaking the night's eerie silence as Bill continued his drive. His heart thudded unevenly in his chest, each beat echoing the panic swelling inside him. The rearview mirror reflected the empty back seat, but he could still feel that oppressive presence, as though it had sunk into his bones. He squinted into the darkness, half expecting to find the mystery passenger with a menacing grin. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye on the shoulder of the road. A fleeting shadow darted across his headlights, almost too fast to comprehend. Wolfing down a breath, Bill blinked and leaned forward, eyes straining against the dark. What if it was a deer? Or something worse? He wrestled with the urge to stop and investigate, but something stopped him, an instinct screaming that safety lay in distance. Meanwhile, at the same hour, Emily found herself traversing the spine of that same highway, adrenaline pumping from her earlier encounter. The diner's fluorescent lights still clung to her like a faint pulse. Ahead, her headlights illuminated a darting figure. Was it the same hitchhiker? Her heart raced. She had just convinced herself it was nothing more than a trick of the light when it appeared again, clearer this time. The figure, a gaunt creature swathed in tattered clothing, turned to face her. Time froze. The air thickened. Emily felt a cold sweat forming as the figure raised a hand, beckoning her forward, its gaunt face twisted in an unsettling smile. Her foot hovered above the brake, fear and fascination battled it out. In that critical moment, all she could think of were the tales of the road, those who stopped to help, only to vanish into thin air. She slammed the pedal down, tires squealing, heart pounding. The spectre disappeared just as quickly, leaving only a gust of wind that rattled her windows. Derek, still holding on to his harrowing memories, found himself caught in another dilemma. He had to pass by the graveyard again. Regular roads were blocked off. As he approached the familiar, foreboding sight, chills crawled up his spine. This time, however, the fog, sinuous and heavy, clasped the ground as shadows shifted between the tombstones. He could have sworn he heard a whisper calling his name, mingling with the rustling leaves. Unease pooled in Derek's gut. What if there were more than just restless spirits? What if he wasn't alone? Images of pale hands reaching for him danced in his mind. Was this a sign, or was it merely his imagination again? He was torn. Leaving now felt like abandoning something far more significant than just a late-night detour. The night was stretching thin, fraying at the edges as each driver faced their private spectre trapped between fear and fatigue. There was an unseen thread weaving their stories together, a sinister connection lurking just beyond their understanding. Unbeknownst to them, the road craved more than just their fleeting passing. It hungered for something far darker. As their paths drew closer, in the silent spaces of the night, a thunderclap shattered the tension, illuminating the horizon. And in that blinding flash, a glimpse of something buried deep shook them to the core, a truth that would bring them together and push them to their very limits. What awaited in the next moment could change everything. Would they confront the nightmare head-on, or would it consume them whole? Bill's heart raced as he wheeled around a tight curve in the road. The headlights barely pierced the dense fog wrapping the asphalt like a suffocating blanket. Memories clawed at him, echoes of laughter from happier days, warning voices from lost friends. He could feel the weight of those shadows pressing down. Suddenly, a shriek of tires on gravel jolted him back. He glanced down the rearview mirror, instinctively searching for the origin of the sound. In that split second, the high beams of a pickup truck barreled toward him, swerving dangerously into his lane. Panic surged. Was this just another road hazard or the manifestation of something worse? He floored it, heart pounding, praying to evade whatever unseen menace trailed him. At that moment, Emily was still trying to shake off the encounter with the gaunt figure. Her hands gripped the steering wheel hard, knuckles white with fear. The memory of that twisted smile flashed before her again, the image lodged in her mind like a stubborn thorn. She shook her head, trying to focus. "It's just fatigue," she murmured, convincing herself, but the weight of dread didn't lift. Instead, an uneasy whisper crept into her thoughts. What if that figure was a herald of something cruel waiting on the road? Little did she know, Derek was passing the graveyard, wrapped in his struggle with the memories of loss. The fog thickened like a looming threat, each tombstone casting elongated shadows. Derek shook his head violently, gripping the wheel tighter, muscles tense. Suddenly, a fleeting motion caught his eye among the headstones, a flicker of movement. The whisper he thought he heard earlier rose again, this time clearer, calling to him. "Derek, come play." The coldness of dread pooled inside him. "No!" he shouted, voice ragged, trying to drown out the echo. As if summoned to the otherworldly call, Bill arrived at the same cemetery moments later. He didn't want to be here, didn't want those nightmarish thoughts confusing him. He rolled down the window, hoping for fresh air, but instead, a frigid wind rushed in, wrapping around him like phantom hands. He shivered, instinctively placing his hands on the frame of the car, wanting to feel real steel. Meanwhile, Emily's headlights scanned the area when she saw the eerie glow illuminating the cemetery up ahead. She could glimpse figures flitting between the stones. Against her better judgment, she slowed, curiosity and fear warring inside her. Should I stop? She thought, heart racing. Just as she made the choice, Bill's engine sputtered. Pandemonium erupted within him when the dashboard lights flickered out, shrouding him in darkness. Not now. He cursed under his breath, kicking at the floorboard, fists tightening against the steering wheel. He forced himself to breathe, every inhale laced with the stench of something ancient and buried. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder. "Help us, help us!" the chilling voices echoed, intertwining with the wind's scream and luring each driver closer to the cemetery's unholy grasp. Derek leaned closer to see better, his own silhouette carved against the tombstones. The moment felt electric. They were all drawing closer, each on their own narrow path towards something unimaginable. They could sense it, the impending doom, the ultimate confrontation, some lurking horror waiting to unfurl, and just as he felt the urge to break free, bursting from this spiral of tension, another thunderous clap of lightning fractured the sky. It illuminated the cemetery, catching Derek's horrified expression. Shadows leaped in wild abandon, the truth hovered just beyond the fog, thick and choking. It was a truth that could shatter all their worlds. Would they be brave enough to face it? Or would fear tear them apart? Bill's heart thudded painfully in his chest, each beat clamoring against the eerie stillness that cloaked the cemetery. The once familiar road was now like a treacherous maze, edged with foreboding shadows. As he wrestled with the dread creeping inside him, a crash of thunder shook the air, a stark reminder that he was not alone in this surreal nightmare. Across the gravel, Emily stepped from her car, the soft thud of her feet muffled by the thick fog. Something drew her deeper into the cemetery, a magnetic pull towards the unsettling silhouettes. Was it sheer curiosity or something darker? With each step, the whispers swelled, echoes of pleading voices twisting around her like vines. "Help us!" she shivered, goosebumps racing along her arms as she tried to silence the panic tightening her throat. "This is a bad idea," she muttered, glancing back at her car, just a light in the misty abyss. But the broken voices echoed again, haunting her with the desperation of the forgotten. Meanwhile, Bill wrestled with his own demons. The car engine sputtered like a dying breath, drowning out any possibility of retreat. Suddenly, the air turned solid around him, as if the fog was morphing into something else, something alive. The whispers crescendoed, a choir of yearning souls that seemed to hunger for something only he could provide. He clenched his fists tighter, nails digging into his palms. "Get out!" he shouted into the fog. "Show yourself!" Derek, still stuck in the chilling embrace of the graveyard's grip, froze at the voice imported from somewhere beyond. His every instinct screamed to run, but the flicker in the corner of his eye held him paralyzed, a fleeting shape darting among the headstones. "Derek, remember me?" It was her voice, haunting and sweet, but twisted in a way that sent shivers trailing down his spine. Memories clouded his mind, her laughter, their promises, the tragic last moments they shared. But every comforting thought morphed into dread. "No. You're not real." He cried out, as if challenging the specter. Suddenly, as if answering his call, a surge of electricity raced along the ground, crackling with intensity. Shadows danced wildly, elongating and twisting as though mimicking the chaos within him. Darkness pooled deeper, swallowing the feeble light that clung desperately to the ruins of the cemetery. At the same moment, Emily felt it, a shattering chill pierce through the air, dragging her gaze to a specific gravestone, its old carvings warped and bleeding with time. "Help us!" The voices were now just behind her, a chilling reality that enveloped her in its grasp. Her heart raced as she turned, but it was too late. A figure emerged from the fog, vast and grotesque, reaching out with long, bony fingers that seemed to scrape the air. The twisted face bore haunting familiarity, a blend of joy and horror that made her scream. Bill, hearing the piercing shriek, tore his gaze from the swarm of shadows and stared at the cemetery entrance. A sudden rush of determination surged through him. "I can't lose another friend." He slammed the door open and charged into the graveyard, adrenaline pushing him forward. Within moments, Emily, Derek, and Bill were pulled together in a web of terror, locked in a silent scream of fear and desperation. The fog thickened, swirling, squeezing tighter as the whispers intensified. "You belong to us now." Facing the wrath of the beyond, each knew that to confront the darkness would mean risking everything. They had to uncover the hidden pain binding them together, or be consumed by it. The entity loomed ever closer, an echo of a forgotten past swirled through the air, a truth lurking just beneath the surface. They were about to uncover secrets better left buried. What lies beneath the gravestones, waiting to be revealed? Would they dare uncover the truth or let it swallow them whole? The air turned frigid as the shadows closed in tighter. Bill could barely see his friends through the haze. The grasp of darkness wrapped around them, a vice threatening to crush their spirits. Emily's scream echoed in his ears, a sound that vibrated with sheer horror. He forced himself to move, to dodge through the sea of graves and towards the source of the terror. Derek! Emily! He shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. He fought to keep the panic at bay, pushing forward, but each step felt like walking through molasses. It was as if the earth itself was resisting him. Don't let it take you. Derek yelled, barely audible above the din of haunting whispers. He stumbled backward, the specter looming closer, a nightmare-given form. Bill's instincts kicked in. We need to hold hands. Stand together. He grabbed Emily's trembling hand, then reached for Derek, who hesitated, caught between fear and the realization of their unity. Hurry! Before it's too late. As they formed a circle, the whispers transformed into roars, echoing off the tombstones. You will not escape, you are ours. Emily shuddered, her voice barely a whisper. What do they want from us? The truth, Bill barked, his heart racing. We have to confront whatever is binding us here. Whatever has haunted us, it's time we faced it. The area around them grew eerily quiet, the fog pulsing like a heartbeat, thickening around their feet. Bill felt the cold rise around them like a creeping tide. Remember why we came here, he urged. We faced loss together. We have to remember who we were before this moment. Suddenly, the figure, still cloaked in darkness, drew even closer. Its face twisted in an unrecognizable grin, transparent eyes glimmered with sadness and rage. Come forth, lost souls, it intoned, its voice iron and now sweet, resonating within each of them. Unbury your grief. Images flooded into Bill's mind, moments he'd tucked away. The final goodbye to their friend, their laughter, and the terrifying guilt of survival. He clenched his jaw, flashes of the past igniting his anger. No! He shouted, burning with determination. We're not your puppets. Derek shook with apprehension. What if we don't remember? What if we can't face it? A flicker of hesitation passed through Emily's eyes. We must. There's only one way out. Together they concentrated, summoning memories long buried. As they waded deeper into the recollections, the entity writhed, the shadows around them splintering with their gathering strength. Bill felt warmth rising from within, a flicker of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. You think you can defy me? The creature shrieked, its voice growing warped, the walls of fog shuddering violently. You cannot escape your fate. In unison, they remembered. The laughter of a friend at a summer picnic, the joy of a shared moment, the bittersweet echo of a life cut short. Tears streamed down Emily's face, but this time they were not of fear. They were of release. Let it go. Bill shouted. Break the chains of the past. The ground shook, a tremor echoing through the very stones they were standing upon. As memories surged with raw emotion, they felt their bonds weaken, shackles of despair were cracking, then they heard it, an anguished wail, so primal it stirred their souls. The fog began to recede, and for the first time, clarity emerged, but just as the gloom faded, they felt an unmistakable shift, a presence attempting to root itself again, now more furious, more desperate than ever. You will pay for this. It thundered. A cold wind whipped through the graveyard, swirling tendrils of fog around them. They stood gasping, on the verge of what could be their escape, but uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Are we strong enough? Emily murmured, her eyes wide with fear. That's the question, isn't it? Derek replied, gripping their hands tighter. As the shadows twisted back into menacing shapes, beckoning with deadly insistence, they exchanged a knowing look. They had unearthed their memories, but the battle was far from over. Just then, in the dim light, the ground at their feet began to tremble violently again. What happens if we don't finish this? Bill shouted that a deafening crack rang through the cemetery as the deepest grave cracked open, shadows spilling forth like living ink. Only one way to find out, they said in unison, hearts pounding in anticipation and dread, as the unseen forces began to rise from the depths. Into the darkness they'd go, but would they emerge whole, or was this the beginning of something far worse? The ground split wide open, and the shadows surged upward like tortured whales escaping from a forgotten prison. Bill's heart raced, pumping adrenaline with each thundering beat. The air was oppressive, charged with a dark energy that felt alive, swirling around them like wild snakes. "Get ready!" he yelled over the horrific cacophony that now filled the graveyard, a mix of tortured cries and distorted laughter. The essence of their past battles against guilt and loss gnawed at him. This was more than just a creature of darkness, it embodied their fears, their regrets. "What do we do?" Emily screamed, terror etched into her pale face, eyes wide with panic. "Focus on each other." Bill shouted again, squeezed Emily's hand tighter, and looked at Derek, trying to summon all the strength they had left. "Concentrate. We've faced this before." "Not like this," Derek trailed off. The growing shadows pressed against him, clawing at the edges of his reality. "I feel it wants us to fall apart." Their bond, the chain they formed, flickered precariously, and Bill felt the grip of dread strangling hope. "No. We will face it together," he affirmed, knowing this was their only option. Struggling against the tide of darkness, they leaned into each other's strength. Bill closed his eyes, forcing memories back to the surface, the laughter, the friendship, the warmth of shared moments that had once filled the void created by loss. Each image was a life raft in this storm of despair. Suddenly, the air crackled and shifted. "You think memories can protect you?" The monstrous voice of the entity pierced their souls, a chilling sound that slithered under their skin. With a flick of its shadowy arm, it conjured visions, memories twisted into grotesque forms, laughter devolving into sobs, joy morphing into regret. Bill fought back. "Don't listen. Remember who you are." He felt Emily's heartbeat through her grip as she connected deeply with the core of their bond. "We're not lost. We are fighting for our future, not just our past." She bolstered his resolve. Derek's voice trembled, yet it was steadying. "We have to name it. Name what it is." As if to invoke power from the darkest corners of their experience, he shouted, "It's guilt. Pain. It's the past haunting us." The waves of darkness recoiled, as if they had been scorched by the light of their acknowledgement. Bill could sense the shift, the horrifying force that had bound them was now vulnerable. "That's right. We aren't your puppets." He joined in, a roaring defiance rising within him. The entity shrieked, its form wavering, lensing into horrific shapes before them, shadows twisting, morphing, battling against their collective strength. The further they pressed, the more it struggled. "You think you can banish me?" Light radiated from their clasped hands and surged outward, illuminating the darkness that surrounded them. The entity faltered, and for a fleeting moment, hope glimmered in the terrible void around them. Bill knew they had the upper hand now, but he also sensed the desperation of the formless horror before them. "Keep going. This is our last chance." The trembling ground beneath them rumbled. The shadows hissed, trying to fold in on themselves yet unable to grasp the light being formed by their unity. In a moment of fierce clarity, Emily raised her voice and proclaimed, "We reclaim our joy. We reclaim our friend's memory. We refuse to let sorrow overshadow our lives." The words carved through the dark air, echoing off the gravestones. The shadows lurched back violently, the entity's raw anguish fueling a whirlwind of black smoke swirling with furious energy. "Prepare yourselves," Derek yelled, as the ground quaked fiercely. "If we get sucked in, there's no coming back." "Together," they shouted, forming a tighter grip, pooling the remnants of their collective courage. But just then, a burst of frigid air coursed through the cemetery, something sinister and ancient, and with a heart-stopping roar, the entity lunged forward, aiming to drag them into an abyss of despair. "Hold on." Bill screamed, feeling the tremors of fate. Closing in, the shadows sprang forth, but the brilliance of their unity shone bright. Would it be enough to banish the horror, or would they become another echo among the whispers of the forgotten? As the darkness surged once more, they braced themselves against the onslaught, knowing this could be everything, and yet, it still felt like just the beginning. The entity lunged, its shadowy claws outstretched, reaching for them like desperate fingers clawing for salvation. Bill felt the force of its rage wash over him, an icy wave that threatened to snuff out the light they had ignited. The air was thick with despair, swirling like a tornado of memories and regrets, and he could almost taste the terror that clung to his tongue. "Don't let go!" Derek cried, his voice strained as the shadows clawed at their ankles. Bill tightened his grip on Emily, her fingers squeezing back with fierce determination. He could feel her resolve, a fire kindling within her heart that mirrored his own. Together, they formed a shield, a barrier of unity against the encroaching darkness. Bill's mind raced, searching for something, anything, that could strengthen their bond against the horror. "Remember the good times," he shouted, each word punctuated by the sound of the earth cracking beneath them. "The camping trips, the laughter. We've fought through this before. We can do it again." With every syllable, the shadows writhed and screamed, losing their grip just enough for a shaft of light to pierce through the haze. In that moment, Bill saw visions of their lives: road trips with the windows down, birthday parties where cake flew everywhere, quiet moments of friendship that filled their hearts with warmth. "Yes," Emily chimed in, her voice breaking through the din. "We're not just fighting against you, we're fighting for what we believe in. For us." Suddenly, the creature faltered. Its form shimmered, flickered, as if their memories were a weapon it didn't know how to combat. For the first time, Bill thought they could actually drive it away. But the shadows twisted maliciously, wrapping around them, constricting like a serpent tightening its grip. "Bill." Derek's face twisted in fear. "It's coming back. It's not finished yet." The ground shook violently, and Bill's heart raced. "We can't stop," he yelled, desperation clawing at his throat. "We have to push harder." The entity screeched, a sound that pierced the night, causing crickets to fall silent. The repository of their fears surged, threatening to drown them, but they stood resolute. "Remember Sarah," Bill shouted, invoking their lost friend, the one they were determined to honor. "Her laughter, the way she lived. We can't let her memory fade. We owe it to her." With each word, a semblance of strength flowed between them, binding them more tightly. The shadows recoiled, writhing as if lit by flames. Derek, eyes blazing with intensity, echoed Bill's proclamation. "She's with us. We carry her spirit." The air crackled, a high-pitched whine escalating into a deafening roar as the shadows flared brighter, caught in a violent flux. The entity shrieked, lost in a spiral of rage and grief. But just as the light began to engulf the inky tendrils, a chilling wind swept through the cemetery, forcing Bill to gasp. It curled around him, sapping the warmth, and a distinctly sinister whisper slithered into his mind. "Do you really think memories are enough to bind me?" It hissed, a dark promise dripping with malice. "I am not just shadows of the past. I am despair incarnate." The ground shook violently beneath them, and dread pooled in Bill's stomach, mixing with the rising tide of hope. It was a storm without end, and he knew they hadn't won yet. As the entity surged again, they staggered back, a moment of vulnerability threatening to split them apart. "No!" Bill shouted. "We are stronger together." But just then, something shattered in the depths of darkness, a new force awakening. The shadows writhed, screaming in agony that changed the tone of battle. A realization struck Bill: they might not just be facing their past, they were about to awaken something even darker. "What is happening?" Emily cried, her voice trembling with fear. "Brace yourself," Derek shouted, heart racing. Bill's heart sank, his grip faltering as the shadows transformed into a void, a sinister portal whispering promises it knew they could never refuse. The abyss before them yawned wide, and as they confronted this new horror, the echoes of their laughter faded, swallowed by the growing storm. Could they withstand the darkness and its new threat? Or would they be drawn into a nightmare from which there was no return? A flicker of doubt snaked through Bill's mind. Their bond was strong, but in the face of an unseen terror, would it be enough? He could only hope the answers lay ahead. The decisive moment was fast approaching. The air shuddered, the world narrowing down to that swirling void. Derek stumbled back, his face drained of color as he caught the first glimpse of what lay within the abyss. What is that?" His whisper trembled like a leaf in the wind. Bill wanted to answer, to comfort, but words failed him. The shadows rippled and twisted, forming shapes that danced with dark mockery. Tendrils reached out like skeletal hands, beckoning, pulling them closer to the gaping maw of despair. Emily tightened her grip, eyes wide with determination. "We can't let it take us." She stepped forward, defiantly, her voice shaking the very ground where they stood. "We'll fight. We're not afraid of you." But even as she spoke, a chilling laughter echoed, a dark chuckle resonating from deep within the void, filling the air like poison. It clawed at their hearts, whispering insidious doubts. "Fear runs deeper than you realize. You can't escape me." Bill wrestled with his own fear, feeling it clawing at his insides like a wild animal. But he couldn't show weakness, not now. "Focus on Sarah," he shouted, summoning memories of their friend, the warmth of her spirit pulsing through him like a lifeline. "Together, we remember her. She is with us." The shadows writhed, hissing in retribution, their voices melding into an anguished symphony that echoed with pain and regret. It was as if the very fabric of their fears began to unravel, showing glimpses of memories not just of Sarah but of all their darkest moments. "Look!" Derek yelled, pointing a trembling finger. "It's showing us our failures, our past. The faces of lost opportunities, bitter endings, and regrets materialized within the dark." It was a gallery of despair, one that threatened to drag them into a pit of sorrow that felt all too familiar, yet, even in the devastating onslaught of these memories, a flicker of resistance ignited in Bill's core. "Derek. Emily. We've shared so much love, laughter. That's our strength." With every ounce of willpower, he pulled the two closer. "Hold on to each other. We can drown out its darkness." As if summoned by their shared resolve, a burst of luminescence emerged from their linked hands. It shone bright like the sun breaking through a storm, momentarily illuminating the shadowy forms, pushing them back, retreating with howls that echoed like banshees. But even as hope sparked within his chest, Bill could feel the malevolent entity shift, its focus intensifying. "You think you can resist me forever?" It rasped, voice low and menacing. "I am your greatest fear realized." The brightness flickered as the shadows rallied, tentacles creeping back, greedily seeking their light. Bill felt his heartbeat quicken. They were running out of time. The ground beneath them quaked in anticipation of the battle looming ahead. Derek's eyes glinted with resolve once more. "It's not just fear anymore," he declared, his voice rising over the din. "We're fighting for light. For each other." The ground jolted, and the dark entity shrieked, angry that its focus was shifting. Bill's soul echoed with their shared determination. "We'll show you what it means to be united." But just as the air thickened with potential victory, the abyss pulsed and began to shift again, engorging its depths. Bill stared into it, dread freezing him in place. The faces of the past contorted in anguish morphed into something else, something darker than he'd ever imagined. A fragment of a memory flickered before him, a flash of a truth he'd been trying to ignore. "What is that?" he gasped, the realization slipping between his fingers like sand. And as a hand emerged from the void, a sinister figure began to rise, something they'd buried deep, a specter of acutest pain. It was almost like looking in a mirror, but twisted and warped into something grotesque. "Is this what you've been hiding?" The entity purred, a dark smile forming on its visage as the shadows coiled tighter around them. Bill's breath hitched. Could they confront the very core of what haunted them? Or would the darkness consume everything? Was the confrontation with their past merely the beginning? As fear washed over him anew, he tightened his hold on Emily and Derek. "Stay strong," he shouted, unsure of what lay ahead but desperate to face it together. But the portal lurked, promising something frightening and awe-inspiring. What truth awaited them in that darkness, and would it be a blessing or a curse? The answer hovered just out of reach, like hope in a storm. The shadows around them writhed like living smoke, pulsating with a dark energy that seemed to breathe. Derek's wide eyes flickered to the figure emerging from the void, something both comforting and horrifying. It held their memories, their sorrow, twisted beyond recognition. Who are you?" Bill cried out, stepping back, the ground shifting beneath him. The entity, a fusion of their fears, morphed into reflections of their past selves, contorted by anguish. It was them but worse. "I am you," it whispered, its voice dripping like venom. "Every moment you chose to hide, every regret buried in darkness, I am the truth you fear. You haven't just failed your friend, you've failed yourselves." Emily's grip tightened around Bill's arm. This isn't real. We're not giving in." Fear crackled between her words, but it wavered against the chilling gaze of their doppelganger. "Not real?" It sneered, shadows flickering like flames in the wind. "What is real but the pain you carry? Look around you, this is your haunting ground, a testament to your cowardice." The landscape shifted once more, drenched in the hues of twilight. Shadows danced, repeating their past choices, a painful memory parade that left bruises not just on their hearts but etched in the air around them. Bill felt a hot prickling in his eyes as friends they lost appeared, faces twisted not in anger, but in sadness. "Why didn't you save us?" A familiar voice echoed, crisp like fresh wounds. It was Sarah's voice, layered in disappointment. It cut through him like a knife, shattering the fragile shell of their unity. "Stop it!" Bill bellowed, fury and despair mixing into a potent cocktail of helplessness. "We're not afraid of you. We can't change the past, but we can change now." The figure froze, its mockery twisting into a contemplative frown. "Can you truly change? Or are you bound by the shackles of your mistakes?" A dark tendril flicked out, curling around Emily's wrist as it tightened, threatening to pull her into the dark abyss. She gasped, fear pooling in her eyes. "Bill! Let her go!" Derek shouted, stepping forward, throwing all he had into the words, clutching the memories they shared. He thought of evenings on the porch, laughter echoing into the night, the comfort of friendship. "Those memories are lies, hollow echoes of what you believe you are." The entity howled, its voice rising with a tempestuous fury. "You want to believe you're stronger than your fears, but I am the phantom that follows you. Your own darkness will consume you." The shadows quaked, the ground beneath their feet trembling. Bill felt the air closing around him like a vice grip, suffocating him under the oppressive weight of their own insecurity. He couldn't let it end here. "Remember who we are. Remember Sarah," he urged, eyes flicking from Derek to Emily. "We have the strength of our bond. We can share our pain. Together, we're unstoppable." A flicker of vulnerability danced across the entity's features. It hesitated, momentarily caught off guard. Each pulse of light from their hands grew brighter, pushing against the pressing darkness, a rebellion against despair. "Fight!" Emily screamed, her voice breaking the entity's grip on reality. "This is our moment." As the trio began to chant Sarah's name, a resonance filled the air, lifting their spirits like a rising tide. The oppressive weight of despair began to fracture, the strange grip of the shadows loosening slightly. "No!" The entity screeched, a howl of agony echoing through the shifting mist. "You can't escape me." But there was something shifting deep within Bill at a realization that surged like fire. We don't have to escape you, we just need to embrace everything we've hidden. And as they pressed forward, the very fabric of the abyss began to ripple under their united force. Would their shared defeat shatter the entity, or would the shadows rise to envelop their flicker of hope forever? They were on the precipice of something monumental, teetering between salvation and annihilation. With darkness clawing at their heels, they rushed forward into the depths. What awaited them on the other side of the void? Would it be a celebration of their bravery or the ultimate manifestation of their deepest terrors? The shadows swirled chaotically, lashing out under the weight of the truth Bill, Derek, and Emily dared to embrace. They stood firm, hands clasped, a barrier against the dark. Memories poured forth, bright patches of color in a world of gray. Laughter resurrected, love rekindled, and the warmth of friendship blazed like the sun through the oppressive night. Come forth! Bill shouted, his voice clear and determined, cutting through the cacophony of despair. We acknowledge you. We remember everything. You cannot break us. With each declaration, the shadows roared back, writhing and contorting, howling with rage. You are nothing without your guilt. It binds you eternally. It screeched, tendrils wrapping tighter around Emily as if trying to crush her spirit. No. Derek yelled, leaning into the grip of their bond. We are not defined by our past. We keep moving forward. We live for those we've lost and for each other. They dug deeper into their memories, more words rising, anchoring them against the turmoil. Sarah wanted us to live. Emily cried, her eyes fierce, shimmering with undying resolve. We will honor her by breaking this curse. The darkness unleashed a furious wind, shrieks echoing, but the trio held stronger. The entity shuddered, uncertainty rippling through its form. Each memory transformed into light, a balloon of hope intertwining with their resolve. In that moment, an ancient fight shifted, from fear to light. Bill grasped the energy building around them, channeling power from their shared sorrow, pain, and, finally, joy. We are not afraid, and we will not be silenced. He cried out, a victorious roar surging from his heart. It's working. Emily gasped, light pouring through their clasped hands, illuminating the graveyard like the dawn breaking through the night. Suddenly, a wave of brilliance erupted from the trio, sweeping through the fog like wildfire, and the entity screamed. It twisted, its form shifting from monstrous to grotesque as light began to envelop them. You think this is victory? You cannot escape your fates. It shrieked, panic lacing its voice, but they stood resolute. We choose our fates. They yelled in unison, combining their strength into a magnificent force. We want to let you win. The entire cemetery exploded in a blinding light as the shadows tore apart, shriek upon shriek echoing through the air until there was nothing but silence. As the light began to fade, the trio found themselves standing together in a clearing, the moon now high and bright in the sky. The graveyard was gone. They were back on the highway, the trees lining the road free from the oppressive shadows that had plagued them. Bill looked around, breathing heavily, disbelief coursing through him. Did we win? We're free, Emily breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. We actually did it. Derek shook his head, awe painting his expression. We faced our fears, together. I thought maybe it's okay, Bill interrupted softly, putting a reassuring hand on Derek's shoulder. We can talk about it. We have each other now. They stood close, feeling the warmth of their bond cradle them like a security blanket. Hope burned brighter than ever in their hearts. For the first time, they truly understood the weight of what they carried. There was a peace perched on the edge of the horizon, and though the night had been dark, it had brought them closer to one another, allowing them to shed the pain that bound them. Let us drive, Emily suggested, smiling through her tears. Let us go forward. With renewed spirit, they climbed into the car, laughter spilling from their lips as they navigated back onto the road. Each mile became a celebration of survival, memories of loss honored in their hearts, yet an exhilarating future awaiting just ahead. As they drove into the horizon, the moon cast a soft glow over their path, illuminating every mile with warmth and promise. Darkness could no longer haunt them, rather, it was but a reminder of what they had conquered. The road stretched endlessly before them, and they knew whatever lay ahead would be. Faced with courage, hand in hand, and thus, they drove away, leaving behind the darkness, stepping into the light. It's your turn now, friends. You need to subscribe now to catch the next thrilling chapters of our journeys. This is the moment to show your support and keep this adventure alive. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And don't wait even one more second to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the stories rolling, and show the world that we can conquer whatever darkness tries to creep into our lives.